Jam, this is number 2. We're on our own because we forgot. Because that's how we roll in the Shire. So, number 2.
We forgot because there's no standards when we do AV Jam.
Correct. That's why we did it. It's a plan. You know it. So, number 2 episode, and it is standards interoperability. There is none. Discuss.
Say that again.
Standards and interoperability.
Oh, God, yeah.
Doesn't it all go back to ego?
Hey,
still, right? Yeah,
The ultimate ego.
Yeah, right. You're right. It's all tied together. Yeah.
You said it right there.
I have such mixed feelings on standards and whatnot. Is that on one hand, it's particularly being new into the industry, having that base would be really, really helpful. But at the same time, as soon as you start mixing other products in and what kind of applications are we talking about, it's just impossible to do. I think that having certain base
like what you were saying earlier, what are the standards in AV? Like, who's enforcing that? Avixa? I was like, let's get them to decide on a name. Are you Infocom, ICIA, Avixa? Like, you can't even standardize on a name, and you're gonna standardize on a solution. It's like, I'm sorry, you haven't really done anything substantial, which is why the
standards that wind you up. You know what I mean? Like the in AV, we have a real tendency to let everybody have a go at something until they finally ends up. So you look at like video over IP at the moment, right? It's all a bit of a mishmash of whoever wants to do something, they end up with that. So we'll kind of let everybody have a play until they end up at a shared uniform thing. I think that's, it'd be great if there was a little bit more discussion. I think that's...
because I look at some companies, especially like the Kramers and the Auroras and some of those guys, and they all seem to be at the same place. But nobody else is, that's for sure. I mean, and everybody thinks they know everything about IT. Big companies that way.
Yes.
We know who we're talking about.
Yes.
Now. We're not going to name names there. But they don't. And they're playing in a game, which is fine. But if you're going to play with that IT game, you better use their standards.
Yeah, 100%.
And they're not doing it right now.
Can you really say, though, particularly with USB-C, we have no standard with that yet. I mean, we've had USB-C on our computers for ages now, and how am I getting it from the table to the display?
But there's still 2
Power and
flavors of
data?
it as well. Is it Thunderbolt or is it DisplayPort?
Yeah, okay.
That's a good point.
All right, okay.
Shit.
It's all shit. Maybe shit.
Standards, right? I was told when I started in IT in 1994 that IPv6 or IPv4 only had a few years to last. We're still stretching it as hard as we can.
And it's still going.
So if you're an AV company, I'm really good at technology, what do? Do I build just for 6 and not put 4 in? Well, then 90% of stuff still isn't going to work properly.
I mean, no, standards and interoperability, it doesn't exist. It'll never happen. It's how many times have people been trying? They've been trying for so long, it just doesn't happen. The only sort of
trying to capture market share as much as you can.
The reason to find something unifying is because you want to be unified, right? The reason to mask something or sell something that's in the guise of being unifying by being a standard or interoperability, it's still to get to be known as that. Of course it is. It's for personal gain. It's not. I think that the motivation is just not there.
But don't you think we've sort of flitted from like islands of like proprietariness, and then it's been back to we're going to go open standard, and everything's going to interact with everything else, and then we've gone back to islands again. So it's Team certified, Zoom certified now. The old days of being just SIP or 323, and a Polycom could talk to a Tamba, could talk to a Life Size, whereas now we're in the worlds of it is a Teams endpoint or a Zoom endpoint. So I think
back then a Polycom and a Life Size, they couldn't talk to each other.
the data sheets said they could.
But there is an element.
Very interesting one. So Enterprise Connect, however many months ago.
Yeah.
UC manufacturers were all in a panel. And the question was around interop, and a lot of them have come out socially and said, look, we are going to focus on interop. And I believe they all said it. They are going to put a focus on interop. Bear with me. I believe they will put a focus. And I think it'll be a very tiny focus, because in that meeting, out of however many people were on that panel, 4 or 5 of them, not one of them could agree on how they wanted to do the fucking interop. which means they're never going to have a consensus because one still wants to go back and use SIP, another wants to use 323, another is saying, look, we're so new at this, we're better than that, let's do it better. There's no agreement, which means that little bit of effort will become too much effort, and still in 4 or 5 years we'll be having this conversation.
At least I'm not greedy. Give me voice, video, and content, and I'm happy with the rest. If I lose raise hand or if I lose polls in that meeting because I've got to, it's not the end of the world. Yes, in the future, let's have it. Let's have the standard that does it. But for now, give me the basics.
Dude, ultimately, I really feel like everybody is looking for more business and ways to grow, and understandably, and that's fantastic. I really hate to see people break it off from other partners along the line and down the chain.
Yeah.
And that's like my biggest gripe. And there's not a specific, spot in the chain that is responsible, right? But like that's my gripe, and it's money.
It is money.
Why would I do that? Like, if I'm a manufacturer, what does it serve me to make my box or my service work with someone else's so that now you can leave my ecosystem?
You're effectively giving away 20-30% of your business by playing ball.
Correct. Absolutely. Correct. It's like, who here really sees capitalism doing something altruistic like that? making it
ecosystem is the enemy of interoperability and standards, then, isn't it?
Absolutely, without a shadow of a doubt.
Where's Kev? Oh, I'm here.
Lean.
Are we off? Got little arms? Fucking hell. Oh, look, professionals here.